Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Radio.W.O.R.K.S. This is your forever young host, Kim, speaking to you from Radlett um, in England. And I'm glad you're joining me today because this morning I promised you we would talk about water. And this is one of the most important subjects that I can talk about in terms of skin. I unfortunately can't be joined today by Marina, so you get to listen to me for the whole show, but I hope you enjoy it anyway, as she's having to be out and about this morning. But anyway, so back to water. Most people realise or know, have been told that our bodies are made up of more than 70% water, so it's not surprising that water is really important to us. But it's really important in terms of skincare, and it's one of the key points that I always make to everybody about their skin, particularly people that suffer from skin blemishes such as acne or teenage spots. Then water is very, very important. It helps to just wash through your body, taking the impurities away and taking nutrition to the skin, and that's its function basically. It's in every single cell. They're keeping the cells at the right amount of moisture level so that they can work optimally. And if the body lacks water, if it becomes dehydrated, those cells can't work at their best. They can't do the jobs they're intended to do at the most efficient. So it's very, very important to keep our bodies well hydrated. But also, I always think that water is very important to us psychologically as human beings, because somewhere in our distant past, our bodies, our cells still remember being part of that primordial slime. We still remember being beasts that swam in the water. And probably there's also something linking us back to the time when we were in that embryonic sac somewhere inside of our mothers, and at our probably most comforted in our lives when we were still kind of rocked by the gentle sway of our mothers as they went about their daily lives while they were pregnant with us, and actually being surrounded by water. I think psychologically for us, water is one of the key things. It's almost beyond food in terms of its importance for us, if not for just for drinking, but just in general. If you think about relaxing images, people like to play the sounds of whale music and gentle waves washing up on a beach when they're trying to relax. And if we think about our favourite holidays, even if we don't go for a beach holiday and like to sit on the beach occasionally or walk along the sands, even if that's not our thing, then probably we would like to walk along a river or a canal or take a boat or sit beside a lake. Most of us, even if we're quite nervous of water, even if we're not swimmers and water actually makes us nervous, most of us like to sit beside a river or a stream or a lake or the sea. Most of us have that kind of connection with the water on some level that psychologically I think we're not able to get over as human beings. It's part of our DNA, part of our makeup. So I know for me personally, it's one of my favourite things to do is to amble along the canal near here, or to go and just sit on the beach and just watch the waves. I don't particularly necessarily always want to go for a swim or a paddle. Sometimes it's far too cold for those things. But just to actually sit and watch the waves, I find amazingly relaxing. And so for me, key things about water are, firstly, that when we drink water, it's taken directly into our bodies, and it moves into our bloodstream, makes our blood the right consistency, and then moves into our gut and picks up all of the nutrients that are picked up that we've eaten, comes into our lungs, picks up the oxygen that we need, and it carries it around the body, all the nutrients and oxygen, to every single cell. It bathes the cells, and it, by a process of osmosis, which many of us may remember from school, means that the cells are what they call semi-permeable, so that things like gas molecules and water molecules and things can pass through the cell membrane. So the water passes through the cell membrane and takes with it all the nutrients and oxygen that we need for our cells to replicate themselves, repair themselves, and do whatever their job is. So some cells, like our skin cells, will have jobs of producing various different substances that are important for protection. Other cells, such as ones in our kidneys, are designed for cleaning the blood and taking away all of the impurities and things that are collected from the cells and eliminating them. And other cells will be producing things like enzymes, which are very important for us to live, maybe to digest food, or to help us to create new life, all of these hormones and things like this. So it's really important to us that we drink enough water. And you will have heard people talk, and myself talk, about drinking about 2 litres of water a day. And I've suggested that perhaps a good way of drinking 2 litres of water a day, if you're not very good at it, is to get yourself a 2 litre bottle of water, or a 2 litre water bottle. And when you finish that water bottle, you know you've had your optimum quota of water for the day. And that water doesn't have to be plain. There have been studies done that suggest that actually all of the fluids we drink are actually used in our bodies. But the fact is that other substances in the fluids will also have an effect. So if we're drinking coffee, that our bodies have got to use some of the water to fight against the caffeine and other kind of chemicals that are in that coffee, and alcohol doesn't count. According to studies, the amount of fluid in alcohol is not ideal in terms of the amount of work it has to do to fight the alcohol itself. Although our forefathers actually survived on drinking ale, the ale they were drinking was far, far weaker than anything that's available to us these days in terms of alcohol. So, yeah, I wouldn't risk trying to just drink ale and tell them that it's because the water's not possible these days. I think you would be putting yourself at some risk there. But things like adding some squash to your water may seem like that's a fine thing to do, and occasionally I might use a bit of cordial. My children are particularly fond of the elderflower cordial, but these things are only good in moderation. They contain sugar, and as you may remember from previously when I've been talking, sugar's really not that good for your skin. And if you are going to tune in next week to my show, I'm going to be talking about sugar. Sugar's one of the things that I absolutely adore. It's very, very addictive. I love sugary foods, cake especially, and I enjoy baking. I'm not the best baker in the house, though. I would give that accolade to my daughter. She's definitely a better baker than me. And and so it's actually really quite difficult to um, to avoid the temptation if she does make something tempting. But adding more sugar to things, if we can avoid it, is probably ideal, or definitely ideal, really, because actually drinking sugar means it's going to be much more quickly absorbed into your bloodstream. And in my series that I've been doing, where I've been talking about my new book, I talk about glycation, and I will talk about this more next week on my show about sugar. So for now, just accept that that's probably not the ideal thing to do, to put squashes and cordials and things into your juices, or at least maybe only into one of your juices, one lot of water. And definitely make sure you drink a couple of glasses of just very plain fresh water if you possibly can, because I really do think it makes a massive difference to your skin. When I was young, I used to suffer from breakouts a lot, and I met somebody, and she said to me that she knew somebody who had perfect skin, who never drank anything except water. So I started to drink a lot more water in my diet, and I would have about 6 to 8 cups of water a day. And my skin cleared up completely. And so I remember having a conversation. I hadn't even given having breakouts any thought, and I was having a conversation with somebody I worked with, and the conversation turned to spots, and we were all young, in our late teens, early 20s, and so most of us did still suffer with breakouts and things, and somebody was talking about it, and I interjected with a comment about spots, and a different colleague said that you never have spots, and I just said, oh no, I don't, do I? Because I hadn't even realised I didn't have them anymore, because they didn't impact on my life anymore, so I didn't think about them. But actually, I find this a lot with people's skin, and this is why I recommend you take photos. It's that when the thing that's annoying us isn't there anymore, we don't notice that it's not there anymore. We're just not annoyed by it anymore. We only notice it when it's actually there, when we're being annoyed by it. So it's very important for you to take photos when you are creating a program and working it towards improving your skin, because you may find if you look back on it that your skin's really improved and you haven't noticed. So water really helps clear breakouts and things. It's also very, very important, even if you don't have those breakouts, especially as we get older, and our cell turnover slows down a lot. And actually, having a good amount of cell turnover is essential in keeping our skin looking younger and healthier, with that fresher appearance, because the longer the dead skin cells stay on the surface of the skin, the duller they're going to become. And when we are young, when we're teenagers, when we're children, our skin cell turnover is its optimum. It's between 2-3 weeks, and those skin cells are very nice and fresh and look dewy and glowy and in really good condition, and they come away before they start looking really dull and as though they've been hanging around a while. But as we get older, that skin cell turnover really comes down dramatically, and we lose between 30 and 50% of the it slows down by 30 to 50%. So in our 30s, the skin cell turnover would have gone from being about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks when we were young, right up to 30 days, that's a full month. And we add approximately a day a year. So by the time we're 40, it's taking 40 days. And by the time we're 50, it's taking 50 days for those skin cells to go from the base where they're produced in the basal layer up through those 5 layers, gradually becoming hardened and flattened and clear until they finally slough off the surface. And this is because the newer cells underneath are not being produced as quickly. So if they're not being produced as quickly, they're not pushing through the layers, and the dead cells are not coming away so quickly. And the same thing goes that if the dead skin cells are not coming away effectively, then they're not allowing the new cells to come up to the surface. So we need those skin cells to come away. And one of the biggest factors at keeping those skin cells coming away most effectively is that we have the right balance of fats and water in our skin to produce the right balance in our acid mantle, which is the protective coating on our skin that a lot of people call the natural oils. And that it comes from inside of the cells. If you remember at the beginning of the show, I said that the water goes into your cells and brings in all of the nutrients and things that it needs for your cells to do their job. And the job of skin cells, or in the epidermis, is to grow and then bring hydration into that area, and then to leak the lipids, the fats, and the water back out into the surface of the skin, so it kind of fills up the skin cells in the gaps between the cells, like mortar between stones. So if you imagine your skin cells are like a brick wall, and the sebum and the water come out of the cells and become a kind of sticky mortar layer. And that needs to be just the right consistency, just the right levels, and it's quite a delicate balance. If they're not absolutely perfect, we're talking within, a very small percentage, just 1 or 2%, then it throws the process out and it doesn't work as effectively. So what we want is for that to be at the right level, because then the skin cells are more likely to come away at the right speed. And we can help that process, as I've talked about, by using exfoliation. But actually, the best way to keep that working optimally is to stay hydrated. And this gets harder as we become older, because that barrier loses water more easily by a process known as transepidermal water loss. And this is because our cells are impaired. They're not as in such good shape as they were when we were younger, because they're not produced as well as they were when we were younger, because of DNA, the DNA being damaged by the sun and pollution and things like that. So we really need to work harder as we get older to make sure that we've got the right level of hydration. And so actually, although the water is really important when we're young, because we need it to be helping us with those spots, actually we also need it when we get older, because of the same reason. And actually one of the reasons that people get spots when they're young is because the hormones are imbalanced. Everybody knows that. But actually what happens is the sebum, the oils in the skin, become thickened and they become more sticky. And actually the water, again, by having more water and more hydration, helps balance that sebum and again produce the good mortar between the bricks, that good acid mantle, and helps to fight against where you've got impaired areas, because the hormones have caused some areas of the skin to kind of open up and allow things in that shouldn't be, or to become blocked and then to become infected. That's why you get the spots. So actually, in both cases, the reason that you're wanting to keep your skin hydrated is to keep that barrier in very good condition, and water is absolutely key in keeping that balance. You're more likely to be lacking water in that balancing act because there's a lot more water than fat needed to keep it in good condition. So that's me wittering on about water all day. So next week, as I've said to you, I'm going to be talking about sugar. So why am I talking about sugar? Well, I thought that next week would be a perfect time to talk about sugar because we've got Halloween on our doorstep, and Halloween means that children are going to be walking around, knocking door to door, and you're going to be handing them sweets, or at least that happens where I live, and I know that in America it's happens everywhere. I don't know if it happens all around the world, but certainly it's something that's very prevalent these days where I live. And I used to find that I would nibble the sweeties that I'd bought for the children in between the children coming and knocking on the door. And if there were any left, then they would certainly get nibbled too. And often I might also have some kind of party here with my children, and they'd have guests come and they'd dress up and would play games. And some of the games were fine because they were bobbing for apples, and apples obviously, not too unhealthy, not the worst thing for us. Although actually the acids in the apple and the sugars in the apple mean that you shouldn't leave them on your teeth for too long. So they're not actually as perfect as they were, or well, as I was told they were when we were children. And my mother used to say to me, "I'll have an apple to clean your teeth after your lunch." Probably not the best advice she could have given me, but we didn't know that at the time. But actually, not quite as bad perhaps as the donuts on strings, which we also used to have a lot of fun playing, or worse still, having marshmallows in icing sugar, which people would dip into after they'd bitten the apples, bobbing for the apples, so their faces were wet to get the icing sugar stuck everywhere. So all of these things, lots and lots of sugar, obviously attacking your teeth, which is a bad idea. And as many of us will obviously know, sticking in our hips, are also causing absolute mayhem for our skin. So that's what I'm going to be talking about next week. If you would like to join me then. In the meantime, I shall thank Marina for allowing me to be here today, and I'll thank you for joining me, and I will speak to you again soon. So if you want to join me on Facebook, come along to my Facebook page, foreveryoungthebook.com, Forever Young the Book on Facebook, or foreveryoungthebook.com, which is my website, so you can join me there. And I'll look forward to hearing from people. You have a little bit of time left if you want to join my micronutrient challenge, so just come along. I've put a couple of posts on there. I promise I have been continuing with my micronutrients, but actually I haven't been doing anything very exciting. It's all been salad or just vegetables, because actually I have a degree of mayhem happening here. There's going to be quite a lot of work going on at my house, so I haven't had my juicer out yet, which I'm thinking I might get my juicer out next week and do a few juices before the actual building work starts. So I will tell you about those. In the meantime, do come along, add a few comments about what you've been doing, maybe give us a recipe or just saying something improved for you. And I do have a goodie bag to give away for somebody whose story I enjoy. So thank you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This has been your forever host, Kim, talking to you from Bradley in England, and from Radio Works. Good night.